welcome to Book World: The Great Escape. I'm author CJ Peterson. My co-host over here is author Michael Scott Clifton. Today we're joined by a wonderful writer down below us, CW Hawes. We'll get to him in just a few minutes. Before we get there, Mike, how was your weekend?
It was a good one. We got to go see our grandson, and of course he's not that far away now. Longview is about 50 minutes away from where we live, and got to see some Ellis Pottery. If you get a chance, if you're in Longview at night, they have a Christmas walk, and it's beautiful with lights and Christmas characters. Took our grandson through there. He spent half his time running he's 2.5 years old, spent his time running from one display to the next. It was fun. And anyway, this weekend, Melanie and I are going to be at the Abilene Comic-Con in the Abilene Convention Center. My son lives at Abilene, so by happy circumstance, we'll be staying with him while we're going to the Comic-Con. And Brett works in Abilene, so we're going to be able to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And then next Tuesday is the Longview Art Walk. Normally they have it on Thursday, but it'll be on Tuesday. It'll be the last art walk of the year, and we'll be at that from 5 to 8. It's in downtown Longview in the historic area. We'll be in the Vera Bank lobby with some other fellow authors that we always show up for the Longview Art Walk. And then I will be on the Meet the Author podcast, Carter Novels, on Wednesday, December 7th, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock.
December 6th?
Or 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. So, and then
it's December 6th.
Let me make sure, December 6th. I'm sorry. You're right. It's December 6th. It's on a Wednesday.
On Wednesdays with us. Yeah.
December 6th. Thank you, CJ. At 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And looking forward to that. It'll be my second time to be on there, the Meet the Author podcast. I'm looking forward to it. And anyway, looking forward to the break. That will conclude probably for the year the book events that we will be attending and reload, I guess, for the next year. So
there you go. Well, I was sharing with the guys that last time we were on here, basically I was sitting in front of that window that has the curtain with my computer on a box. So today I actually have a room. I have a desk. I have a chair. There's a bed, dresser. So our house is slowly beginning to be found. The reno guys are now gone. We had a lot of reno going on as soon as we moved in. So for about 2 weeks. And so now we're just kind of slowly trying to finish unpacking while I'm trying to get Christmas up at the same time. So yeah, it's been fun. But I'm trying to get it all done because I start school in January. So we're trying to get it all done and get it all fixed. So obviously events have been on hold, but we hope to start in, I believe the first weekend of February is Brazoria Comic-Con down in Texas that we'll be at. So we'll be helping with that one and help run that one. So yeah, in the meantime, I know that next week we have Jinx Schwartz will be on. Excited to have her coming on. I've been trying to get a hold of her for a while. So excited to have her on. She's one of your Magnolia Bluff writers. And I know that you guys are currently on tour with Lone Star Literary Life book tour. Tour. I'm a blogger for them. So
good.
Awesome.
That's cool. That's a good thing.
Welcome, sir. Happy to have you back.
And good to be back. Yes. Thank you.
The last time we had you on for mystery. Today we're talking paranormal. So we were kind of trying to figure out a definition for it before we come up with one.
So as far as I'm concerned, I don't see any difference. When I was growing orchids, there were questions over species and genus and how they were classified. And there were lumpers and splitters. The lumpers always wanted to lump everything together into big, genera, and the splitters wanted to split everything. So there were all these other ones, and there were no rhyme or reason about the whole thing, no rhyme or rules about it. So I kind of see paranormal and supernatural the same way. You're either a lumper or you're a splitter. I'm a lumper. I just lump them all together.
Yeah, I mean, there were some very few not crossovers in those.
I mean, you have in both, if you're going to split them, in both, you have something that isn't within our realm of reality, in our nature. So it's either supernatural, above the natural, as it were, or greater than the natural, or it's paranormal, which is about the natural or around the natural. It's, again, not really natural. So, I guess if you want to split it, fine. To me, it makes no difference either way, other than, like we were saying before, how is Amazon going to treat it when we put those keywords in there?
That's the question. It's the whole Amazon question of exactly how are they going to consider it?
Yeah, exactly. Today is the operative word there, because tomorrow it might be something different.
They'll change it. Especially, like, I love it when they change it when you're in the middle of trying to get a series out and they've changed the things and you're trying to figure out, oh no, I did that last time. So how do I go back and change it back again to the new one?
Right.
No, it gets fun.
It's nuts.
But you've got some interesting ones. I remember reading one of them. I don't know if I can pronounce it right. The Zuvembis.
Van Dyne's Zuvembis. Yes. Yes. The well, that's part of the Pierce Moston paranormal investigations series. That series came about because I was watching reruns of the X-Files. And it hit me all of a sudden that, well, what if the two investigators suddenly met something out of the Cthulhu mythos? And what if they weren't really just working for the FBI, but it was a really super secret government agency that's purpose was to get rid of these Lovecraftian monsters that were going to destroy the earth? So then I said, did somebody else do this first? Well, there was a writer who was somewhat similar, but not exactly. So I said, that works. So then I started running with it, and so it's mostly cosmic action adventure horror is what Pierce Moston is. But there are, with Van Dyne, there's two Van Dyne books. Van Dyne's An Evil Genius, which is a trope in and of itself. But he creates these monsters to try to, again, take over the world, So in the first book, Van Dyne's Vampires, he has all of these vampiric type creatures. Then in the second one, Van Dyne's Zuvembis, actually, I pulled the Zuvembi out of a Robert E. Howard story, Pigeons from Hell. Pigeons from Hell is an awesome story. But a Zuvembi is kind of out of voodoo, although I don't think it's actually voodoo. But the Zuvembi is essentially a woman who drinks the black brew and becomes this timeless creature whose sole purpose is to kill people, usually motivated out of hate. So using that kind of that idea, was then able to play with things about hate and how hate can give you, a bizarre purpose in life. And so there were some philosophical things I was able to toss around in there, but basically, the Zuvembi is a supernatural creature or a paranormal creature, however you want to classify her. And so I had great fun with that.
So go ahead.
So I know you do a lot of, it seems like the books that you've that you've written are kind of cross genre. So what other genres would you say that you write in CW besides just the broad categories we've established of paranormal?
Well, I mean, I write, a straight private detective
Mhm.
series, and I do have a post-apocalyptic series. It's on kind of hold right now, but it has a nice ending if I never get back to it. Those are just straightforward. There's really nothing supernatural about those.
Right.
But I do have some shorter works that one's a ghost story that I have, and I have a vampire story, and I love vampires. How can you not love vampires? And so, and then I have a Cthulhu Mythos short story.
What is that?
What is that?
Yeah.
Well, the Cthulhu Mythos is an invention of H.P. Lovecraft. And Lovecraft's was a materialistic nihilist or nihilist. And his base philosophy or worldview is that given the whole scope of the universe, we are nothing. And so to kind of play this out, he created this race of beings that he calls the elder gods, Cthulhu being one of them. And basically they're invading or trying to invade our world. And there's always a group of somebody trying to stop them, and usually they do. Or Cthulhu and his ilk just sort of decide, this isn't quite the right time. But the purpose of that is to show that we are insignificant, and that there are these greater beings who really don't care if we live or die. It's like us and ants. Do we care if ants live or die?
No.
No. Well, that's how Cthulhu is. He doesn't care if we live or die.
Gotcha.
So the Cthulhu mythos is maybe a sub genre of horror or supernatural literature, whatever you want to peg it. I've thrown in an action adventure twist to it because Lovecraft did not do action and adventure. But I think for today's readers, they like a little more action, although Lovecraft's very popular. But I think, generally speaking, today's readers like some action in their stuff, so in their reading. So Pierce Mostyn has a lot of action, but the base premise is set in the Cthulhu mythos. And so it allows me again to play with the philosophical question of, do we actually have meaning, or don't we? And if we don't have any meaning and these beings are going to squash us eventually, why are we even bothered stopping them? And so I'm able to play with some of these philosophical type issues, and I don't, it's not heavily heavy laden or anything, or heavy handed. This is, nobody wants to read that stuff, but except philosophy students. But I sort of, kind of sneak it in there to kind of give the reader a chance to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you would include horror as one of the elements in paranormal?
Well, it could be.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be. And then it gets to, well, how are we defining horror? Is horror a genre, or is horror a characteristic? There are some people who don't call horror a genre. They just say it's a characteristic of a science fiction story,
Right,
or a fantasy story, or a, any kind of story, So I think horror sort of has a little separate. So you can have paranormal and it not be horror per se.
right.
And you can have, well, shoot, you can have fantasy without magic. So if you can have fantasy without magic, you can have anything. So,
it all comes down to what type of a recipe are you wanting to create.
Yeah, exactly.
Story has different elements of pretty much every genre. It's just which one are you currently highlighting in this particular story series.
Right.
But we've taken genres and we've subdivided them into so many thin slices now that it's hard to know where the genre begins and ends. I know that at a lot of book events that I've been to, and I'll ask someone, well, hey, do you like to read? Yeah. What do you like to read? Horror. Yeah. Not paranormal, not fantasy, not science fiction, horror. And so I think in the mind of some readers, anyway, that it's definitely its own category.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Mike, that there are a lot of people who are in that camp. And again, yes, I would say splatterpunk, for example, is flat out horror. I don't know that you could sandwich it anywhere else, because it doesn't really fit anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But it's its own kind of horror. It's totally different than cosmic horror, for example. It's totally different than a ghost story, really. Right. Well, unless there's a ghost doing the splattering, right. I guess. I don't know. But, I tend to, I guess, with my paranormal, supernatural stuff, I think I sort of slide towards the horror end of it. Mm-hmm. But it's really different. So in a novella that I have, Do One Thing for Me, it's about an old man, George, and George is going senile, and he knows he's going senile, and he's house sitting for a friend who's out of the country, and it's just George and his dog in this house. And his sister calls him every now and then to check on him because George's wife has died, and George is suffering a lot of grief from the passing of his lifelong partner. In the course of the story, we sort of see George beginning to unravel, and he meets a young woman, Beth. But the question really comes down to, as the story unfolds, is Beth real, or is Beth a figment of his imagination? Mm-hmm. And if Beth is real, then she's a succubus. She's a demon. Mm-hmm. But she might not be real. So and that's where the story ends. I don't say what she is, if she's real or not. That's up to you, the reader, to decide if she's real or not. Because quite honestly, I don't know.
Which is pretty interesting, because most authors basically tell the reader the ending point.
Yeah.
You're letting it kind of hang and be like, I'm leaving it to the reader's imagination, which is unique. I haven't heard that before. So that's pretty cool.
Well, it kind of comes from, I wrote poetry for a lot of years and published hundreds and hundreds of poems. And the type of poetry I wrote was Japanese poetry, English language, obviously Japanese poetry. I don't know Japanese, but like haiku, tanka, that sort of thing. One of the key things in writing tanka in particular, which is what I specialized in, is that the poem is the middle of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So the poet's giving you the middle of the story. You, the reader, and this is a convention they understand, you, the reader, then supply the beginning and the end. So with that in mind, I use that approach. I won't say often, but I do use that approach when I tell a story. I don't give the reader everything. I let the reader come up with it on their own.
Fill in the blanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. No, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of stories tend to start with the what if question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the more creative the what if, the more creative the story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, I see the beauty of reading is that it is really a two-way kind of street.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that watching TV. I don't think you're just there watching it. But when you're reading a story, you're actually interacting with it. There's more that goes on than just your eyes sliding over these words. You're taking the words, you're taking them in, you're interpreting what the author is attempting to say. And I mean, there's a theory of language. I don't know that I necessarily fully buy it, but there is some value to it in that once you as the writer write your story and you put it out there for the public, your viewpoint no longer counts.
Mm-hmm.
It's the viewpoint of the reader that counts. And to some degree, I think that is true because all of us approach a story with a different life perspective, a different set of life experiences,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to govern how we interpret the story. So with George and the young woman, Beth, is she real or not? Depending on your background, you're going to come to it with a certain set of solutions to the story based on what you've experienced in life.
Interesting. Well, I know you mentioned the different perspectives because I was part of the underground authors when we did that.
Yeah.
Beyond the Sea.
Yeah, Beyond the Sea. Yeah.
We were given just a picture.
Yes.
And all of us wrote a short story from just that picture, and there were totally different stories.
Yes.
Completely and utterly different stories.
Totally.
None of them overlapped.
No.
But that's just big, and that's the same thing as the reader. The reader takes in the story, they kind of see through it through the glasses of their life.
Exactly. That's exactly it, and that's why, you know, Caleb Pirtle would say that, you know, you can't really plagiarize because you're going to take something, and even when you try to plagiarize it, you're going to come up with something really different than the original author. And to a large degree, I think that's true. And, you know, our anthology kind of showed that. We had a picture. We all had the same picture. There was nothing different about it for any of us. And
I wrote all the stories. They were all different.
They were all different. I mean, it just was amazing what we all got out of that experience, looking at that picture and then what it ended up in. And so, you know, I think that, it's the reader and the writer have a special relationship when they read. And so, you know, when you write, in this case, you were, you know, paranormal fiction, you're writing about say what you know, so you write a vampire story. But your understanding of everything is different than somebody else's. There's a young Scottish woman. I don't think she's writing anymore, which is a real shame because she's excellent. R.H. Hale, who wrote a novel called Church Mouse. And it's from the perspective of a vampire's servant. I had never, ever read a story from the perspective of the vampire servant. And this thing was just awesome. It's an awesome, awesome novel.
Mhm.
Because it's this young woman's interaction with these beings who are supernatural, or paranormal, whichever you want to call it. They're greater than us. They're not of us anymore. And yet she's very human.
Mhm.
And Hale was able to just, like pull me in. And even though the main character is female, and I don't necessarily do very well with female main characters, but because of my guy, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, she just was able to suck me in because she was able to portray all the emotions
Mhm.
that were universal. So, it's a phenomenal novel.
We have about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, the 2-minute warning.
I know it went by fast. If you were to give advice to somebody who wanted to write paranormal, what would you tell them? Or supernatural?
Whichever, yeah,
Whichever.
or both. I would say, first off, you have to read it
Mhm.
and like it. If you don't like it, you're really not going to enjoy writing it. If you don't enjoy writing it, the reader's probably not going to enjoy reading it. So, I think you really have to read it.
Yeah, it's that same theory of no laughter from the writer, no laughter from the reader, no tears from the writer, no tears from the reader. Yeah, you have to enjoy it.
So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing would be just sit down and start writing. Because if you like it, you're going to see the world through that set of glasses.
Mhm.
And when you see things out there, situations, you're immediately going to start interpreting them for how you can put that into a paranormal, supernatural story. So, and having read what's already out there will help you to not repeat what somebody else has done.
Right.
Very cool. To learn more about CW Hawes, make sure to check out his website at www.cwhawes.com. He has multi-genre, so make sure there's tons of stuff to check out. Meanwhile, next week we're going to have author Jinx Schwartz, who's also part of the Magnolia Bluff series, crime series. So we'll be talking to her about her series Head of Coffee. So looking forward to that. She's a fun lady. CW, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to you. Always a joy. Is there anything you'd like to add? We have 1 minute left.
I would just say that for all the readers out there, this is the best time to be reading. There's so many good books. And for all the writers out there, just keep plugging away. You have an audience.
Yep.
Definitely. Also, this time of the year is a great time to find deals on Kindles, Nooks,
Yes.
and Kobos for those e-readers. There's also a lot of paperback specials that are out there, so make sure to check them out.
Yep.
I know I have some. All of my fellow authors tend to have some about this time. So load up your Kindle or your Nook or whatever your preferred e-reader is for the entire year about now. In the meantime, we'll see you guys next week on December 6th with Jinx Schwartz. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.